It's time for today's travel and cruise industry news. With the latest from travel and cruises around the world, here's your host, Chillie Falls.
Hey, good morning and welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News on this, the 24th day of March, 2020, and a day which certainly has started off to be better than a lot recently with the markets going up substantially, so it'd be nice to gain back a little bit of what we've lost. On a personal note, before we get to the news of the day, we are still sheltering in place, just out of being cautious for the three of us in our household that are senior citizens. So we are here and we'll be here for the duration, however long that may be. I know there's some talk about starting to look at ways of continuing with the social distancing and still get people back to work. I think that's a terrific idea. But it looks like because of we're in the senior citizens class, we're probably going to be pretty much in place until this business is over with, however long that is. And of course, it's going to be interesting, again, looking at cruise ships as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So if you're new to this channel, and once again, we keep getting new subscribers every day. The numbers keep going up, and that's great. So if you are new and not used to this channel, we regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. So if you like to keep up with cruise ships, ports of call, cruises themselves, this is our travel and cruise industry news show, which is on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And my interview show called Chillie Chats. Just hit that little subscribe button. It's down there in the lower right-hand corner, and that'll make Tina Turtle, which that's Tina Turtle. I never can remember where I have to point. There it is. That'll make Tina Turtle very happy if you hit the subscribe button, and those numbers keep going up. And of course, as always, folks, we do appreciate thumbs up on anything we do, be it a video or a live stream. That also makes Tina Turtle very happy. And if you don't like what we're doing, you can give us a thumbs down. But anyway, that lets YouTube know that there is some engagement with the channel, and that is appreciated. So my headline for the story this morning probably took some people actually by surprise. This is something we talked about the other day. That would have been Saturday. Talked about it Saturday, and since then I have actually appeared on a couple other shows in the travel and cruise industry space to talk about this. But the bottom line is the Alaska sailing season must be canceled. And I'm going to relate why that has to happen unless there are magnanimous changes to a lot of things. But basically, the Alaska sailing season is done until July the 1st. And I will explain that in detail right after this word from Scooter. Do you have a bad back, bad hips, bad knees, or any other mobility issues? Think about Scooter. For scooters, walkers, wheelchairs, even oxygen needs, delivered right to your cabin. Scooter Round for all your mobility needs on your upcoming cruise. Okay, there's two main factors that go together for me to come up with a conclusion that they have no choice but to cancel the Alaska cruise season at least until July 1st. The first and the major factor in this is the Canadian government shutting down their ports to all cruise ships until July 1st. Now, on the surface, one would think, well, that just takes care of Vancouver. because you still have ships from Seattle that go to Alaska and come back to Seattle and don't go to Vancouver. They do. Most of them have a port call in Victoria. Some have a port call in Vancouver, but port calls can be canceled, as we found out, over the time, especially with the business we had with cruise ships with the virus on board, and all sorts of ports canceled cruise ships out. But that's not the whole story. Yes, the Canadian government has banned all cruise ships until July the 1st. The rest of the story goes back to the Passenger Vessel Services Act of 1886, which became the Jones Act of 1920, which is also known as the Merchant Marine Act of 1920. And these acts do not prohibit foreign flagged ships departing from and returning to the same port, provided the ships stop at any foreign port. Now, because cruise ships, and one of the things I was wrong about, the three majors, Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and Norwegian, are not American corporations. They are corporations in the Bahamas and Panama and Libya or somewhere. I don't remember what one of those countries. But anyway, and they fly the flag of that country. But because they are foreign flag ships sailing from a U.S. port, they must go to a foreign port before they can come back to a U.S. port. So, if a ship was going from Seattle, let us say, up to the Alaska season like they normally do, up through the Inside Passage and hit one of the glaciers and go to Ketchikan and Skagway and Juneau and turn around and come back to Seattle. So they do not violate the Maritime Merchant Marine Act of 1920, which is shortened to the Jones Act. They must stop at a foreign port. The only foreign port is in Canada, which would be either Vancouver or Victoria, and they're banned from doing that till July the 1st. So now that's the bottom line of the whole situation. You've got the combination of, number one, they are a foreign flagged ship. They are not U.S. corporations that own the cruise ships. They fly foreign flags, which the reason they fly foreign flags, although the benefit is that they get by with some corporate taxes they don't have to pay. But then most corporations don't pay corporate taxes anyway. They get by with or around it. But anyway, they don't have to pay corporate taxes because they're not a U.S. corporation. But they are based in this country. They have real estate in this country. They have real estate in various ports. They're entering deals all the time to help build a cruise port, which they'll own real estate there. So there are some taxes being paid, just not a major portion. They avoid some taxes, yes. But the main reason is because they can avoid labor laws. Because cruise ship personnel and a lot of the more liberal folk amongst you people out there are upset over the labor laws on the cruise ships, when in fact the people that work for the cruise ships, they love it. They make enough money to live comfortably and see the world and have room and board and entertainment taken care of. And they can send half their money at least back home to their families that have next to nothing to live on because most of them are from other countries, a lot of third world countries. So they don't mind that they work 7 days a week. They don't mind that they might have to work 12 hours a day when passengers are on board. They love it. It's a wonderful life for most of them. And yeah, there are some U.S. people on cruise ships as well. There's not many because in this country, we are used to our labor laws. So we think it's awful. Well, some of us that cruise understand why. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's the main reason that they fly foreign flags. So they can get by without having to deal with the labor laws. Okay. And the benefit is they also don't have to pay corporate taxes. So when Canada blocked the cruise ports, our other laws stop us from sailing to Alaska at all, because there's no way we can't avoid that. If they would go from Seattle to Anchorage, let's say, and go from a U.S. port to another U.S. port, they still must go to a foreign port. In other words, in that journey, they have to visit Canada, because that's all there is between any of the ports that sail to Alaska, which would be Seattle as the main one, Vancouver is the second one, and then there's one or two cruises from San Francisco and Los Angeles that fall under the same thing. Now, take that a step further, folks. If you ever gone to sailed from a U.S. port to Hawaii, or from Honolulu back to a U.S. port, be it San Diego or San Francisco or Vancouver or Seattle, or any of the West Coast ports, where does it always stop? In Ensenada, Mexico. That's a foreign port. So it can go from Honolulu to, let's say, Los Angeles or San Francisco. It must stop on Ensenada. So again, it fulfills the Jones Act. The Jones Act does a lot more than just cruise ships, folks. It also deals with things like the dock workers and protections for them. I mean, it's a massive act. And to change it so that you could sail from Seattle and do Alaska without going to a Canadian port would be a major undertaking and screw up the entire merchant marine system that we've been living by in this country for over 100 years, when it first started in 1886. So that ain't going to happen. Now, conversely, on the eastern side, ships from New York or Boston that go to Halifax or New Brunswick or up into the St. Lawrence Seaway to eventually get to Quebec and Montreal, they fall under the same regime. You can't sail from Boston back to Boston unless it goes to a foreign port. It goes to one of the Canadian ports, or it goes to Bermuda, or it's like from New York, it can go to Bahamas before it comes back to New York. It can't sail from New York out and come back and just port to port. That's totally illegal, and none of the cruise lines do it. This isn't anything that the cruise lines is taking them by surprise. They've been living by this for years. So my question is, why haven't they just come on and said, okay, with this case, we're done until July, at least until July 1st, and go on and let people that have got cruises booked in June get to make other plans, unless the cruise lines are just trying to keep from coughing up the money for refunds until we get closer to when they actually have to do it. My cruise on Norwegian that was supposed to be on the Norwegian Jewel has not been refunded yet. I have not received any word from them that the cruise is canceled, although I know it's not going to go. So anyway, all right, we've got to say hello to a couple people, and then I've got a couple more things to cover this morning. Nancy Long says, hi, Chillie. That she's on Facebook, by the way. Hi, Chillie. Might not Seattle ban ships too. Oh, yeah, that's always a possibility because of their health situation, but that has not happened yet. And with Seattle being one of the hot spots in this country, who knows? I don't think we're out of the woods with this yet. I think we've still got a lot of changes coming. All right. Amy Rogers says, traveling with Bruce said recently that Carnival Corp paid $70 million in taxes last year, and they employ hundreds of thousands of American citizens shoreside. That's one of the arguments, Amy. And where the people are still complaining about it, that $70 million that they paid in taxes is not in U.S. corporate taxes. A lot of that is because of their real estate holdings and their where they own real estate in the ports, where the office is down there in Miami, that office building. It comes from that. And yes, they employ thousands of American citizens. And my other argument against that is that the travel agent business. There's 43,000 travel agents in this country. They all pay taxes. They all live totally on cruise lines because they make no money off airlines anymore. So, I mean, they make their living from promoting cruises. All right, Tom says, let's have a movement to put a hold on the Passenger Services Act, Jones Act, so ships can sail to Alaska, don't need to stop, just see the sights as we cruise by. Well, I mean, that would do it, but it would take a lot of restructuring of that act, and I'm not sure that they want to go with something that short. So we'll see what happens there. The reason cruising has changed a lot since the act was put in place. Time to rethink it. Well, I agree. I mean, it's 1886 when it first started, and then again in 1920. That's nuts. So lobbyists are trying to get the thing changed. I would hope so. How is my internet? Lots of delays. Oh, I didn't know that. I can't tell from my end. I hope you guys are not having trouble seeing this. I didn't know I was having any internet problems, not that anything that I had seen from this end. Okay, Amy says, my brother is in the Merchant Marine and he will argue up and down against changing the Jones Act. He does occasionally cruise, but he thinks other things might change if you ditch the. I agree. There's no way in the world that they could ever do away with the act itself, because, I mean, everything from all the labor unions that have to deal with dock workers, and I mean, that's all falls under that. Plus, all the freighters, and it's a whole gamut of stuff that's covered by this act. I mean, the act, it took me hours to read it all. So, yeah, would be a massive undertaking, I think, to change it. I don't think they can just go in and do a amendment to something that old and established laws. I don't know. I'm not a legislator, so which is probably a good thing, because I don't want to get rid of most of them up there. But that's neither here nor there. So, okay, got a couple other things to talk about this morning, but that's why the Alaska sailing season is going to be closed down until July 1st. That's my opinion, folks. That is not anything that I have heard from any cruise line, because they're totally ignoring it so far. But I can't see how they can avoid doing anything but closing down until July the 1st. My opinion. So, one of the things that I found just frightening I guess this was last night I first saw it. The coronavirus survived 17 days on the Diamond Princess on solid surfaces. Whew, that's scary. The study examined, and this came from the CDC, by the way. This isn't some wacko, crazy bunch of people protesting. This came from the CDC. The study examined the Japanese and U.S. government efforts to contain COVID-19 outbreaks on the Diamond Princess in Japan, and then again on the Grand Princess in California. Passengers and crew on both were quarantined on board after previous guests who didn't have any symptoms while aboard each of the ships tested positive for the virus after landing ashore. So I find that to be a little scary, guys. So basically what that's saying, and listen, folks, I'm a cruise fanatic. If we started cruising tomorrow, I would be on the first one in line to get on a boat. I don't care where it goes or where it sails from. I'd be on another ship. But that's me. But now what they're saying is that if this, and again, folks, I probably am using the wrong terminology, but this germ, let's just call it a germ of this virus, is on a substance, the counter in the bathroom in a cabin. That sucker can live for 17 days. Well, that could be through, let's say if a passenger deposited that germ on the counter in that bathroom, if it wasn't properly cleaned, that could be through the next cruise, let's say a 7-day cruise. Those people could be contaminated and take that germ home and get on the airplane and all that business to get home and go on to the next cruise. That would be 14 days. It could go to the third cruise and still be viable. Wow, that's frightening. Now, somebody said that maybe Princess doesn't clean the ships very well. That's the first thing I started questioning was, why is Princess getting all these things? But there have been instances on some other ships now. So it's not just Princess. So apparently what I think they're finding out now is this 17-day is just a lot longer lifespan than they thought. So I found that to be frightening. Is that going to stop me from cruising? Probably not. Of course, the other thing that I've got to deal with now is, are they going to, how much grief because I'm a senior citizen am I going to be allowed to get on cruise ships? Which is a whole nother issue that, they required a doctor's note toward the end there before this 30-day shutdown. Do I think there's going to be more than the 30-day shutdown? Absolutely. There is no way in the world, I don't think, that cruise lines can start sailing in a couple more weeks. Yeah, they could put a cruise ship in a port and do so and have it all disinfected and everything and have it in a cruise port ready to load passengers. How are you going to get the passengers there? Because the majority of people have to travel to that cruise port to get on that boat. So I don't care what cruise port you're talking about. That means you've got to fly. Well, the airlines aren't flying. And I heard this morning, there's a good possibility that the airlines are going to do their own banning of domestic flights in this country because they can't afford to fly empty planes. Not to mention the fact that the hotspot areas like New York, travel from New York, I wouldn't think that's going to last at all until they're done with this. So I'm fully expecting the hotspot areas at least to have travel banned from there, even though it's not right now. I mean, somebody could get on a plane in New York and fly someplace. I mean, they've got to go through the screening and all that to do it, but still, that could happen. But I do not see this happening, folks. I hate to say this because, man, I keep looking at some of the bargains that are out there, especially on past guest bargains. And like with Carnival, the what is it, FIP, just some crazy, initials for past guests, whatever they call it, some program. I mean, there's some just dirt cheap cruises. So, I'd be jumping all over them. I could be going every week and not spending hardly any money except to get to the port, to sail. But I don't see it happening for a while, folks. Hate to say that. I really don't. I'm thinking, we're probably looking at the middle of the summer before things can possibly start going again. Again, that's my opinion, folks. Nobody's saying that. It's totally my opinion. The ship I was supposed to be on is the Norwegian Jewel. I guess most everybody by now has heard about that, especially if you follow Cruising by Bruce. It's been out there all over the Pacific, and nobody would let them land. And finally, they got into Honolulu, but because of the 30-day shutdown in the United States ports, they couldn't disembark in Honolulu. So they were planning on sailing back to this country and maybe getting to Fort Lauderdale or someplace like that. But they had engine issues going into Honolulu, and it seems like the ship is questionable whether it could make it to another port after leaving Honolulu. So they finally got special compensation and approval from Honolulu to disembark yesterday and let where the people will board chartered flights going home, according to a press release. Now, all of this is despite the fact that there are no confirmed or suspected cases of COVID-19 on the ship. So let the people off the boat, get them home. Oh my goodness. That's the part of this whole equation that's been wrong, I think. So anyway, the Norwegian has got some technical issues that need to be corrected before it goes on any further. So the other deal is on the opposite side of that situation. A cruise ship that has 42 sick people on board is hoping to dock in Port Everglades, that's Fort Lauderdale, somewhere in the vicinity of March 30th. So that's a week from now. Holland America's Zaandam, owned by Carnival Corporation, originally left Buenos Aires on March the 7th with 1,243 passengers and 586 crew on board. The cruise was scheduled to end in Chillie on March 21st, but Chillie did not allow anyone on board to disembark. Sorry about the throat, folks. They wouldn't let people disembark because there were some sick people on board. And it's been trying to secure transit through the Panama Canal and hopefully to be able to arrive in Fort Lauderdale on the 30th. So we still don't know what plans are being made to get them off the boat once they get there, and if they're going to be allowed to disembark there. I mean, you got to do something, people. So hopefully the CDC and all the parties involved have a plan of attack for that. All right, let's go back and see what comments I've missed out on while I've been running my mouth all this time. Okay, Tom says that Bonnie, our friend Bonnie, I haven't seen Bonnie this morning, by the way. She got, I do know that Bubba got groomed yesterday. But anyway, Bonnie and Tom are having a difference of opinion on Princess. I say Princess must not be sanitizing with antiseptic sprays enough. I don't know. I wonder why. At first, it was just Princess, but then there's been several Holland America ships that have had the same problem. One Norwegian ship. So I don't know. Norwegian Star had constant spraying of the carpets and wiping the rails and handrails with sandy wipes. Yeah, good for them. I think that's procedures that we're going to see more of, Tom. By the way, if you don't know, folks, Tom just got back from a South America cruise. Went around the Cape. It's a cruise that I want to do at some point in time in my life. It's on my bucket list. But he just got home actually in the middle of all this once it got started. So anyway, that's what's going on. Let's see what Amy says down here. I think Princess has always been a big presence in the Asian market. They also have an older demographic and longer cruises. Older demographic, yeah, sort of. Not as old as Holland American. I just got off a Holland America ship and I loved it. And yes, it's an older demographic there. I don't picture Princess. There's probably an older demographic like the Carnival, but I don't picture that as an older demographic like a Holland America is. But you're probably right there. That's again, that doesn't necessarily deal with the spread of the contagion as it does that if there are the senior citizens involved and they get it, it's worse on them. That seems to be the facts of the matter. That's why I'm staying home. I'm not out running about because if I would get it from somebody else, it's going to be a lot worse on me, my sister who's 10 years older than I am, my brother-in-law who's 14 years older than I am. So, I mean, they're old compared. I mean, I'm old and they're older than I am. So the three of us are being very careful. And by the way, folks, because my throat catches up on me every now and then like it did earlier and might do again before we end this today, that is not that I'm sick at all. That's still a carryover reaction to my 56 years of smoking and 5 years that I've not quite 5 years, 4 years and 9 months since I last smoked a cigarette. I still have problems every now and then with getting crud in my throat that comes out of my lungs. And that has nothing to do with any lung disease because that's something that I regularly check and I'm regularly tested for and do regularly scans and all that crap to make sure that I don't have severe lung problems. And at this point, I don't. So, but I still have trouble breathing if I walk very far. And I get, my throat gets clogged up pretty easy because I still have a lot of crap down there. So Tom says when he was on the cruise, he ordered face masks from Facebook ad back in 2008. Still not received them. I filed for a chargeback this morning. Wow. That was before it all broke loose and got really bad where they were, having trouble getting those suckers everywhere. Tom's a sucker for Facebook ads. ordered a no-touch thermometer to keep tracking an oxygen finger sensor. Hope they show up. Wow, let me know if you get those. I was talking with my sister last night that we ought to have some kind of thermometer in the house. We have one thermometer here for all four of us, and it's the old-fashioned kind that you have to stick under your tongue. I mean, that's not the most sanitary thing to do. So yeah, we need one of those nifty thermometers too. So hoping Hawaii is very careful and not to repeat of NSW. Yeah, that's New South Wales. They're having some serious problems over there. Coral Princess is also headed to Fort Lauderdale. As Tom says this also. Yeah, I had some information on that too. I just didn't have time, didn't have space in this show this morning. The Coral Princess headed to Fort Lauderdale. They were hoping to disembark guests today in Rio, but they would need to have confirmed flights, which they couldn't get the flights. So, yeah, it's just a big mess. The travel is going to be screwed up for a while, and there's just no way around it. And I don't see, folks, that there's any way, as much as Mr. Trump, President Trump, wants to get things back to as much back to normal as he can. I don't see that happening to the cruise industry for at least a little while longer. Again, that's my opinion, and for whatever it's worth. So, one bit of news for everybody on Friday of this week. We are going to have a special guest, Chillie Chats, with Pete Hall from Solo Cruises. His group. He's one of those people that talks funny. He's over there in the British Isles, just like our friend Emma, who's been on a couple times on Chillie Chats. But I'm in Pete's group over there with Solo Cruises. As a matter of fact, I sought them out when I started doing solo cruises myself. But Pete is kind of motivated his group to meet on a regular basis in case someone in his group has needs. They're senior citizens like I am, and maybe live by themselves and have problems getting food or their medications or something, and don't have anybody, a family or people taking care of them, like I'm lucky enough to have my niece who does all the running for us. So the three of us that are old don't have to go out and take a chance on catching this. So he is kind of mobilizing his group, and they're having regular live broadcasts, and anybody can come on and say, hey, I got a problem. Does anybody can help me out? Because they have people literally all over the world, even though they're not as big as Emma is, but they're good folks. And especially if you are interested in solo cruises at all, which obviously I am, they're good folks to know, and a good resource for all kinds of information. So anyway, Pete's going to be my guest on Friday. It'll be at 1:00 in the afternoon on Friday, which is 7:00 in the evening their time. And we'll do a little Chillie Chat on solo cruises and what he's doing with his group over there in the British Isles and what's going on in the British Isles. I mean, they're on lockdown, actually worse than we are in this country at this point in time. So anyway, folks, that's it for today. Let's see if anybody else. Oh, Jason, what are you doing? Jason Garland says I'm not on YouTube. Yeah, I am, Jason. Honest. Because Tom Henry and Amy and everybody's over there on YouTube, so you must have missed me somehow. I didn't know that. So anyway, Jason tells me I'm not on YouTube. Interesting. So hey, Jason, good to see you, my friend. Jason's from Pittsburgh, so and one of our regulars. So anyway, that's it for today, folks. I'll be back on Thursday. And of course, I'll be back if anything major happens between now and then. We'll go live with another live broadcast, or hopefully get another video up here in the next day or two. I've got 3 or 4 that I've been working on and just about got them finished. So that's it for now. This is Chillie with Chillie's Cruises. Be good and be good to each other. Later, y'all.
Thank you for watching today's travel and cruise industry news. Join us every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern for another episode. Travel and Cruise Industry News is a production of Chillie's Cruises.